Welcome to Midlife Explorer. Today we're out at Dryden Tract. It's a county forest just on the outskirts of Cambridge, between Cambridge and Ayr. And we're going to go check out the county forest because I haven't ridden my mountain bike in here before, although I have been in here many years ago with my motorcycle. But we're going to go check it out, and while we're going for a ride, I'll give you some feedback on my Giant Trance E+3. I have had the bike for a year now, and I've got just over 1,000 kilometers on it, so I'll let you know what that first year was like and what my thoughts are on the bike, and we'll have a look at the county forest while we're here. So while we're out for our ride today, I will tell you a little bit about why I actually bought an e-bike, because this is actually my third e-bike. So I'll share with you why I actually picked up the Giant Trance E+3, having already owned a couple of e-bikes in the past. And we'll talk about what I like about the bike, and there are lots of great things to talk about when you look at this bike. It's certainly expanded the type of riding I've been doing. We'll also talk about some of the limitations of the bike. There are a few things actually I think that could have been a bit different, can certainly be improved upon, so we'll cover a few of those. I will review some of the specifications, but you can get that stuff online. I'll give you a link to that, and some final conclusions on whether or not I recommend the bike for other people. Now, this Dryden Tract, it doesn't have a lot of trails in here, so I think when I'm done here, I might run over to another location. Just around the corner, there's another county forest, or even down at Pinehurst Lake, which is nice and close as well. But I have been in here before, many years ago, on my Kawasaki 300. You can actually see that. If you look back in my library, there's actually a video of me riding a motorcycle on here, although you probably shouldn't be riding a motorcycle on here. But this is on Trail Forks, so it's the maps are laid out in Trail Forks if you have access to Trail Forks, and I think I'm going to try to explore on my own, though I don't really have Trail Forks running in the background here. I obviously picked the technical portion of the trail here. There we go. Okay, so as far as why I've got an e-bike now, well, I'm 60 years old for starters. I do like to ride single track, although you'll see us riding a lot of rail trails as well. I do prefer to be on single track, which is why I have a dual suspension mountain bike. One of the real advantages, obviously, of having an e-bike is that I can climb stuff like what I'm climbing right now, because on my regular bike, and I do still have a regular hardtail mountain bike, this is probably too much stress for my knee. I'm still recovering from a torn meniscus, and e-bike makes it a lot easier for me to do this kind of stuff. It's not like I can't still ride a bicycle without assistance, but this certainly makes the experience a little easier. Now, I actually, as I mentioned earlier, I actually have another e-bike. It's a Volt Bike Enduro. It's also a dual suspension. Actually, if you look at my Volt Bike Enduro, it actually has a pretty good suspension, but it's actually got a more powerful motor, and it has a bigger battery. So as I was saying, This is actually the third e-bike that I've owned over the years. You can look on the channel to see my first e-bike. It was a Moscow Plus. I really like that bike. I rode my Volt Bike Enduro for a couple of years. And then last year, I purchased this bike. So I put over 1,000 kilometers on it. And owned it for just a little over a year. This is my second ride of the season so far this year. We did another range test on the bike a couple of weeks ago. Now, I actually decided to upgrade my Volt Bike Enduro, not because of the suspension, because the bike was actually pretty good. I wasn't overly thrilled about the build quality, but as far as the rideability of the bike and suspension, actually, it's actually a really good bike, and we kept it. We still ride it. I sold the Moscow Plus to buy this one. The reason we upgraded this bike, or upgraded to this bike, was because we were doing some longer rail trails and riding some distance rides. And on the Volt bike, I never got more than 95 kilometers out of it. And this bike, if you look at the website, if you keep it in its lowest assistance mode, in theory, it's supposed to get you 165 kilometers, I think it says, but I'll post that just in case that number is wrong. So that's the reason why we upgraded to this bike. All right, so what are some of the things I actually like about the bike? Well, obviously the suspension. It's got 170 mils on the front, 150 in the back, I think, and again, I'll put that in the specs. It's got a great suspension, it's adjustable. I've said many times, I grew up on dirt bikes, and most of the dirt bikes I had when I was younger didn't have a suspension as good as this, so I really do like the suspension. It's probably the reason why I bought the bike, because I wanted the build quality and the suspension. Build quality on the bike is excellent as well. I haven't had any issues. Well, I had one issue. The derailleur blew up. Wasn't expensive to fix it though. But the bike's been good. I like the 29er tires, the 2.6 inches wide, the Maxxis tires. So they roll over a lot of this bumpy stuff really nicely. And when you're actually riding on the flats, it just reduces the riding effort by having the bigger tires. So the tires are great. And I really like the brakes. It's a hydraulic disc on the front and back. And again, I'll put the specifications on the size of the discs later, but I think it's got more than enough stopping power for what I need it to do. And it gives me a lot more confidence when I am able to get stopped as quickly as this bike will stop. So brakes are really good on it as well. I like the drivetrain. The Dior drivetrain on the system is actually great. It's 1x12. I think actually it's all you really need. You do tend to max out on the assist level pretty quickly, but that's where we came from. So yeah, I quite like the brakes. The brakes work really well. Gives me lots of confidence. You combine the stopping power of this bike with its suspension and you can carry a pretty good pace. Now as far as the actual mid-drive motor, stake drive motor on this bike, made by Yamaha I think, it's got 85 Newton meters of torque. It's pretty much got all the power you need. I don't really think you need any more power. It's got less power than my Volt Bike Enduro does, and that was the first thing I noticed when I got on this bike. But it's got plenty of power, and you put it into a lower gear, you can pretty much climb anything. suspension, the drivetrain, including the motor. Mid-drive motor is much more predictable than the rear hub, although my other bike's mid-drive as well. Love the brakes. To your right. Thank you. Now, there are some things, and when I stop, I'll kind of point them out to you, but there are some things that definitely need work on. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'll probably do is upgrade the battery on this bike. I bought it, my primary reason for buying the bike was because I wanted to get further on it, because we typically will do 9,500 kilometer bike rides, and we were actually trying to do the full Guelph to Godrich Trail, which is 135, and we thought on level 1 this would get us that distance, and I have done over 1,000 kilometers on multiple occasions, at least a dozen times last year. We planned a 90 or 95 kilometer bike ride only to have to turn around when we got to 50% and not get there. So the most we ever got out of this bike was 90, and that was on level 1 and a little bit of level 2. You start doing any climbing and that reduces very quickly. So really disappointed in the range of the bike, not what I expected when I bought it. The other thing I think I would probably change if it was up to me was the ride controller. I love the look of the bike, and it's kind of like an e-bike that's stealthy. You have to really look hard to see it's an e-bike. And you know, having a big control panel on a bike is a dead giveaway. But I do find this controller hard to operate. I have had many situations where I've been on a hill trying to switch gears, and you know, unfortunately, got stuck climbing a hill because I couldn't find the right gear on it. So I've gotten now used to the idea of just using the middle controller on the actual down tube of the bike rather than the controller on the side, because it's just not reliable enough for me, at least anyway. I'm sure some people have figured out how to use it before, but after a year of riding this, I'm still having some challenges. Now, I don't change gears very often. If I'm riding a short distance like I am today, I'll leave it on auto mode. Nice and easy that way. But if I'm trying to get any distance out of it, I will definitely play around with the assist levels as I'm switching gears. And this one just doesn't work as well as my Volt bike does when it comes to switching gears. And a buddy of mine actually has the older style ride controller and doesn't have the problems I have with this. So those are my two big ones. That's really, for me, the range and the ride controller are really the only two concerns I have with the bike. I do really like it though. It's a good mountain bike. It's, you know, it's heavier than a regular bike, but it really makes up for that weight by giving the assistance when you need it. And because the suspension is so great, I'm happy enough to push through stuff at a quicker pace than I would even on my Volt Bike Enduro, which is also a dual suspension. This one's just that much better. Dryden Tract County Forest. Actually, there's more trails in here than I expected. let's tell you a little bit more about the bike. It's got, I think, the 203 millimeter discs, 4-piston discs front and back. It's got Maxxis 29ers on there. They're 2.6 inch tires. They can be tubeless, although mine are still running tubes. Front fork is 150 millimeters, and it's a RockShox on the front. And then the rear is 140 millimeters, also a RockShox that's adjustable with a Maestro system. It's got a 85 Newton meter sync drive motor, and this one's got a 625 watt hour battery, but I probably will be upgrading that soon because I'm not getting the range I expected out of it. It's got a dropper post on it. Don't use it very often, but because I don't tend to jump this bike, but it's convenient to have it when you need it. Drivetrain is a Dior 1x12. I actually really like the drivetrain on this bike because it gives me a lot more confidence than I have on my Voltbike Enduro. And then the control system, as I mentioned earlier, I tend to use the controls on the down tube itself. I don't really like the controller that's on the handlebar. I tend not to be able to find the gears that I'm looking for. Really happy with the suspension, drivetrain. Really happy with the 29er tires on the bike and the brakes on the bike. Would like to get more range out of the bike though, and I really think it needs a different type of controller because it frustrates the hell out of me. But overall, really happy with the bike, and I'll post some additional specifications and a link to the website if you're interested in learning more about the bike. But after a year of ownership, I'm quite happy with the bike, and other than a bigger battery, probably won't be doing much else to it. Now that was a good spot for a little break. Now, Dryden Tract. This seems to be a combination of county forest trails, and it looks like there's a trail that cuts through the forest, because this is more of a hiking trail. But, it's opening up now, so it's getting better. It was pretty tight there for a minute. So, Giant Trance E+3. This is the, I guess, the entry-level version of the bike. There's a +2 and a +1 version. This one's got an aluminum frame. As you upgrade, you get better suspensions and frames. I'm happy with the bike after my first year. Glad that the season's starting again so I can get out and ride some more. I always like coming to county forests and stuff like that. I mean, I live 5 kilometers away from the pines, so you'd think I'd ride there all the time, but I don't really. Dryden Tract in county forest. It's got some very tight little sections which are more hiking trails than they are biking trails, so I think you got to be careful which trails you pick here, but the main trails are fine. I really enjoyed actually riding here for a quick little ride. You know, you're only going to spend an hour here, you're not going to spend all day. As far as Giant Trance E+3, I mentioned earlier, I bought it because of the fact that I'm 60. I got a knee that continues to bother me. I'm recovering actually from a torn meniscus right now. So it basically, having an e-bike allows me to ride further, ride more technical, ride more difficult single track. So those are the reasons why I got an e-bike years ago, and that's the reason why I got this bike. I bought it because I wanted something with a better suspension and build quality, which it has, but also something that had better range than my Volt bike Enduro, which it does not. So I was disappointed in that part, but I do really like the suspension. 150 mils front travel on the RockShox, and then 140 on the Maestro system, which is the RockShox on the back. 29er tires, 2.6 inch Maxxis. I'm running 2s, but you can run them tubeless. And I really like the 29ers. I like the brakes, 4-pot, 203 millimeter hydraulic discs. Off the stopping power on this bike, you don't need any more. And 85 Newton meter sync drive motor. For what we're doing, it's got enough power, but it doesn't have as much power as my Volt bike. But it's got enough. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I bought this bike and upgraded from my Volt bike because I wanted to do longer range bike rides, and we've done plenty of range tests. This one simply does not, at least in my experience, get anywhere near what it's quoted on this website, even if you're riding a level 1 on a flat rail trail. Never even gotten close, 100 kilometers at most. So I'm disappointed in that part. And I do find the ride controller frustrating. When you need to find a gear and you're using the handlebar mount, you can't do it. So then I'm constantly looking down onto the down tube to change my assist levels, because I do try to manage it. I don't use auto mode very often. although I am today because I don't have to worry about range today. So those are my two gripes about the bike. Would they prevent me from buying the bike again? No. I like the bike. I would buy it again. But I think if you're going to market a bike, so hopefully you find that information useful. If you'd like to learn more about the bike and you have any questions, please leave me a comment. I'll be happy to respond. It's the beginning of biking season, so we try to find new places to go and explore, but we also go back and ride some of our favorites or go kayaking with some of our favorites. So we'll continue to post the things that we get up to, because typically it's what we get up to on a Friday afternoon. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as Nora Lee would say, we'll see you in the next video. No idea where I am. We'll keep on turning right though. Hopefully we'll find our way out of here. Nice place to ride though.